everybody, today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different and I'm going to be profiling a game some of you may have never even heard of. You travel through Kanto, battling trainers and catching Pokemon, with the ultimate goal of becoming the Pokémon Master. This may sound familiar, but I'm not talking about Pokémon Red and Blue.
No, instead I'm talking about the Pokémon Master Trainer board game. For kids who didn't have Game Boys, this was a version of the Pokémon universe that existed only on cardboard. The game begins in Pallet Town, where players each choose an Ash figure to represent them and place them on the board. Then, they randomly choose a starter Pokemon each, and the player with the Pokemon with the lowest power points gets to go first. What are power points, you ask? Each Pokemon in the game is worth a certain number of points, and each trainer must catch enough Pokemon so that the total number of power points in their party is greater than or equal to 20 in order to qualify for the Indigo Plateau later in the game. So the trainer with the disadvantage at the start of the game gets a head start by getting to roll first. They move the number of spaces that they roll, and then perform whatever action the space they land on requires. There are a few different kinds of spaces in the game. Spaces with Pokemon on them, spaces that require you to draw event cards, and towns. When you land on a space with a Pokemon on it, you flip the Pokemon chip over on that space. And if you roll any of the dice amounts on the chip, you catch that Pokemon and get to add it to your party. If you don't roll the right amount, though, you leave the chip face up and move on without it. If you land on a draw event card space, you do just that, and when you land on a town, you perform the action in the description, whether it be healing your Pokemon or drawing item cards. Healing Pokemon? Wait, you mean we actually get to battle them somewhere in here? Yep! Initiating a battle can happen one of two ways. First, you can draw the battle event card. In this instance, the battle must occur whether the trainers involved want to battle or not, unless the challenged trainer uses a Pokédoll item card. Second, you can pass another trainer during your roll, and demand that they either battle or trade with you. Once in battle, each trainer chooses one of their Pokemon to fight for them. Then, they attach any 2 bonus attack cards they have in their hand, and then they roll a die. Finally, they add the number rolled to the attack power of the Pokemon in play, and then they add any attack bonuses the trainer may have attached. Whoever's final number is higher wins the battle and gets to take 2 item cards from the loser. The loser must turn their Pokemon over and count it as fainted, which means it can't battle again until healed and no longer counts as part of the trainer's power point total. In addition to battling with your captured Pokemon, you can also trade them with other players. Trades can be initiated the exact same way battles can, drawing an event card or passing another trainer. If you pass a trainer, they have to agree to the trade in order for it to happen. However, if you draw the trade event card, you pick one of your opponent's Pokemon to trade for one of yours, whether they agree to the arrangement or not. Other event cards include picking up any Pokemon of the color you're on, drawing item cards, healing your Pokemon, or facing a Pokemon from the unknown dungeon. Once an event card is drawn, it must be played immediately and cannot be saved. This means if neither trainer wants to trade or battle, they must do it anyway unless they have a Pokédoll on hand. No, not that kind of Pokédoll, the item card. Item cards are awarded from landing in certain towns or event cards granting anywhere from 1 to 3 item card draws. These cards include different kinds of Pokeballs that can add or subtract to your dice roll to help you catch Pokemon from the board, the aforementioned attack bonuses, potions to revive fallen Pokemon, time machines to reroll the die should you ever need to, and of course, Pokedolls. So what is the goal exactly? Well, once you have 20 or more power points worth of Pokemon, you reach Cinnabar Island and can travel to the Indigo Plateau next turn. There, you travel around the center clockwise until someone lands on a begin final battle space. Whoever lands there chooses a Pokemon to fight their rival with, and the other trainers roll to decide who will play the rival card they face. Once it's determined who gets to act as the rival, that player picks a rival card at random and the final battle begins. The trainer facing the rival battles as normal, and the trainer playing the card rolls once for the attack bonus, and then again for the actual attack roll, which then gets added to the attack power of whatever Pokemon they're using. Whoever has the higher total wins, and if that winner happens to be the trainer facing the rival, the game is over and they are the Pokemon Master. If they lose, however, they must return to Cinnabar Island, their Pokemon is knocked out, and they must continue the game until someone successfully defeats a rival card trainer.
Sound like fun? Well, unfortunately for many kids, the game was just too complicated and involved too much math.
When I played with my friends as a kid, we always made up our own rules and ignored the rulebook that came with the game, and because of that there was rampant cheating. After all, if what I explained to you sounds hard to follow, then you don't even want to hear about the evolution bonuses and which Pokeballs let you do what and so on and so forth. There weren't any elements, and the names of the attacks didn't make any difference. It was the number next to them that mattered. But hey, it's hard to translate a complicated RPG like Pokemon into a board game designed for kids 7 and up, so for what it's worth, I think they managed pretty well. Fun but complicated, this board game is, if nothing else, an interesting piece of Pokemon history.